All right, guys, this is a tutorial on how to tie in a bag. I already made a video of how to cut the holes in the bag, and this is how you tie it in. So see if I can't show you this. I got myself as much prepared as I could. I have the stalks here ready to go. They are the middle tenor I have marked just with a rubber stopper in it. But a lot of times when you take them out of a bag, there's a lot of seasoning and junk down in this section what's actually in the bag. I will get a bowl of warm water and just soak this in it for about 30 seconds, and then you can take a paper towel or a napkin and wipe that debris or that old seasoning out. I have the packing materials. This came off the old bag. I use them over and over again. If you get new ones, you can roll them up tightly and then use a little bit of hemp to hold them, rolled up tightly. I have a wooden dowel as well that I use when I get done with a particular stalk to pull the cord back through so I don't have to use my hands. The bag already has the holes cut in it, and I've massaged it so it's supple, which makes it a lot easier. A lot of times when you get these bags from the manufacturer, they're like cardboard. They'll just stay out flat like that. Whereas if you massage it and wring it out, it makes it a lot easier to tie it in. So I've got the tie-in cord. I have already cut and prepared 4 of the tie-ins, the strings that we use. And I'll show you what I do with the last one for the last stalk. And I've just got them sitting on the back of the chair so they stay organized. I use a door handle, a doorknob to tie in off of. If you have a solid post outside, you could use that. And I've just got a bar stool here with my pull through and a pair of scissors. And I'll show you what all that is used for. I'm gonna see if I can't get you set up on this music stand on my table, so hopefully you can see everything. So you got your tie-in cord. I get this big roll from the Piper's Hut. For most of your stalks, other than your chanter stalk, you're gonna do two body lengths of this, and I'm 6 foot tall, so if you're a 3 foot person tying in a bag, you might want to accommodate to that. But I do 2 full body lengths on it, cut it off, and I take the 2 ends and I just do like a double overhand knot, or not a double, but like a simple overhand knot, but I take it through 2 times right towards the end of the tie-in cord and just cinch it down so you get a knot down there. And other than the chanter stalk, it's 2 body lengths. The chanter stalk, I do about 3.5 body lengths. So then you're ready to tie it in or get started. I'm going to adjust this. So I actually tie this on the back side of the doorknob, so the outside. And I use 2 overhand knots for this. And then close the door on it. And this is where you can use a wooden dowel. And see if I can't get this to. This string has a little bit of stretch, so you want to stretch it before you tie it in, because you don't want to tie it in and then have it get lax after you've tied it in. So just give it a good stretch. You're not going to yank on it, just a solid pull on it like that. All right. And you want to try and keep this from touching the ground because it is sticky and it'll pick up dirt or anything that you have on the ground. I have dogs, so you end up having dog hair in your bagpipes. So now I find it's easiest to start off with the outside tenor, then do the middle, then bass, then the blowpipe, and then the chanter stock. And what I do is I'll take the stock, since I cut this with my copper T, you don't have to fish this up through the neck of the bag. I just take this in, put it in the hole it's going to be tied into. So this is the outside tenor. I come to the outside tenor hole, and I push it in ferrule first. And I'll push it all the way into the bag. This kind of stretches it out a little bit, but it's a lot easier than having to send it up through the stock or through the neck of the bag. So once I push it all the way in, I will flip it around inside the bag and then push the ferrule back out through that hole. And again, doing the outside tenor, so I'm going to go back through the outside tenor hole with the ferrule. So I take this out, and I don't try to get it to where the end of the leather, where the hole is at, right at the tie-in groove on the stock. I keep it a good distance away to start, because it's easier to get rid of the leather above the tie-in cord than it is to put more back above it. You have to end up untying it, taking the stock out, pushing it back in. So right now, the tie-in groove is right where my middle finger is at, right there. And that's a little bit much. I might go a little more on there. Get the tie-in groove about 3/4 of an inch below this. And you're going to take your tie-in cord that you have on the door. You take your hand up through the middle of it, so it's around your wrist. Grab onto the string, then take the part that's around your wrist back over it, and you make like a little loop, so whenever you were to pull on it, it cinches down. So again, you take this guy, hand up through it, grab on, take this over your hand, the part that was on your wrist, and just pull that up through it. And this loop that you created right there is what the stock is going to go into. So that goes in there, and you just get it so it cinches down onto the tie-in groove, or into the groove of the stock. And I'm going to try and get this there and then adjust the camera to show you. So it's in the tie-in groove now, but I think you can see there's some pretty big folds there. It's a fold that has a crease that goes through and under the tie-in cord. You need to get rid of those folds, and that's way too much leather to be sticking up above. That's way too much leather there to be sticking above the tie-in cord. I leave it about 1/4 of an inch when I start the tie-in, and right now it's like 3/4 of an inch. So to do that, instead of just pulling on the stock, I like to grab the bag where there's no stock, like on the inside, and just slowly rock it, like do that with it from side to side. And that you can let loose on the cord just a little bit, pry it, then pull it, and the cord will slowly inch its way up onto the leather. And I'm going to do that all the way around until I have about 1/4 of an inch. Once I've got about 1/4 of an inch, pretty much all of the folds or the creases that go through are no longer there. You can't have any folds going through the tie-in, because that's a way for air to leak out. So, and I do keep a decent pressure on the string the whole time, and keep dropping, keep pulling every once in a while, a little harder to get the cord to drop back into the tie-in groove or on the stock. So I've gotten rid of most of the folds but it's sticking up a little bit much for me. So I keep doing this pry action, just pry it and then pull it. I hope that's visible on there. So I'm still a little bit, I'm about 3/8 of an inch. So I'll do that until I get to about 1/4 of an inch. But if you can see, on this side, it's 1/4 of an inch, but on the other side of the bag, it's quite a bit more. How that is right now, since the excess is on the front side of the bag, that'll cause the tenor drones to want to go forward. I like to have them, on the tenor drones, have it be the exact same or close to the exact same, sticking up above the tie-in cord all the way around. And you can use the beading and combing as a guide to see whether you're pretty accurate as far as having it the same distance around. So I'll try and slowly work it around the whole stock until I feel that it's as even as I can get it to be. And this is where people tend to go too quickly. So you just take your time, slowly moving it just a little bit at a time. So now it's pretty much even all the way around. I don't know if you can see that in there, but it's pretty well even. So now is when you actually start the tie-in portion of it. So I keep a solid amount of tension on it. You want to make sure no one's behind you because sometimes these strings break. So when I say good tension, hopefully you can hear this. So it's going to be tight. So the first time around, I don't have as much tension on it until I've gone all the way around one time and the string is then binding on itself. Then I give it a good pull, and again, not a jerk, just a good pull. Go about half a turn, another good pull. And when I'm going around half a turn, it's still tight. But whenever I get to half a turn and I pull on it, you can hear how much tighter the string is. So again, half a turn, good pull. Half a turn, good pull. And once you've gone around 3 times, you take your pull through and you're going to lay it into in between the tie-in cord and the tie-in groove. I don't know if we're going to be able to see that, how that is, but you just lay it in there. Let's see if I can't show it somehow. So there's this is the, I don't have 3 hands. This is the cord going to the door handle, and this is the pull through. So you've got that pull through there. You're going to go around 2 more times, doing the same thing, going about half a turn, giving it a good pull, half a turn, good pull, and just do that 2 times. Yeah. So I guess it's almost 3 times. You go around twice, and then on the 3rd time around, before it goes back over the tie-in, the pull-through, right before it goes back over the pull-through, give it a good pull. I use my left index finger and push on the tie-in cord and cut it off. So I'm holding that tie-in cord that was attached to the doorknob with this finger to keep it from untying. I take my pull through, the loop end of it. I leave the loop end kind of short. It's about 2 feet long in all. And I leave this loop end a little bit shorter, well, quite a bit shorter. And then take the string that you are tying in through the loop. I bite it with my teeth and pull hard on it. Then I grab the pull through. Hopefully you can understand me. I grab the pull through and I start to pull it through. Now it's held in place. I can let go of it. It's not going to come undone. And rather than yanking on it, and you can already see the lines that it did in my finger, rather than pulling on it with your hands, I take this wooden dowel and I will wrap the pull through around it a couple times till it's binding on itself. And then you just have to hold on to the stock and give a good pull on it, and it'll pull that tie-in cord back underneath. I don't know if you can see, originally it's on the top, and you can see that it's gone underneath it. From there, I tie 2 overhand knots. This is not really necessary, but I do it anyways. 2 overhand knots, and then I'll clip this excess, close to the knot. Doesn't really matter how close. And then you've got it tied in. And before you season it, if you want to see how well you've tied it in, if you can grab the bag and grab the stock, and if you can't turn the stock, then you're pretty well set that it's tied in well. So I'm going to move on to the rest of these, hopefully be able to fast forward it until I get to fast forward till I get to the base drone stock, and then also show you the chanter stock. Okay, so here's the base drone stock. And the reason I want to show you this one other than the rest of them or the other middle tenor is this. Let's see if I can't get it in there. If you can see that the leather above the tie-in cord is not even. The front of the bag is where my left hand is at. You can see that it's only about 1/4 of an inch, and you can see that with the beading and combing there. And on the back side, it's closer to 1/2 an inch. I do this because what that does is it causes the bass drone to want to press onto your shoulder. For me, that's a little bit more comfortable than having the drone sticking straight up. I feel like when I'm doing an attack into a band circle, it's a lot nicer to have it feel like it's resting securely on your shoulder. So that will tilt it that way. And I do the same thing with the blowpipe. That helps the blowpipe stay pointed at your mouth. If you tie your bag in and your blowpipe doesn't point at your mouth, you can always take a loop of the tie-in cord and tie it around the stock of the blowpipe. You fill up your bagpipe, and then with no drones, just corks everywhere, fill up the bag, and then you take and tie that string, the tie-in cord, around the base of the stock and the base of the blowpipe stock and the base of the, I can't even talk, the base of the bass stock. So that way you tie it in while the blowpipe is pointing at your mouth. You cinch it tight. I kind of have to have it so it's pulling the blowpipe down on my mouth a little bit, my bottom jaw, and then you tie it and it holds it in place. And then when you put the bag cover on, it covers that up. So that's a little bit easier fix than untying the stock and trying to change it again. So that's the only difference between the bass and the blowpipe stocks compared to the tenors. Okay, so now we move on to the chanter stock. Like I said, this one is 4 body lengths. I actually do 3.5, but somewhere between 3.5 and 4 body lengths. And most of it's tied in the same way, just a couple little alterations. So on this one, when you do the stretching of this string before you tie it in, you'll feel that it really stretches because of how much longer it is. I'm sure it won't be in the picture now. Okay. This chanter stock still had some goop on it from the previous bag, and that does help, so I just left it on there. I cleaned out the inside of it. I don't think you can see that, but I left this little tacky stuff. You can buy this at Home Depot if you don't have any. They use, you can use earthquake hold if your bag doesn't come with it, but Home Depot usually has some stuff that you can use. Now, a lot of times what you'll find is that the neck of the bag is really tight and hard to get the chanter stock into. You can see that it's really snug. So I'll take the end of the dowel and put it in there and pry it to stretch it out some. So this usually takes a couple minutes. Actually, sometimes whenever they make these bags, there's glue that they use to connect the two places before this welt is put in. And sometimes that glue comes up past the welt and makes this even smaller around. So sometimes prying it with the wooden dowel doesn't do it. You can put your fingers in there and pry it apart. You can actually hear the glue kind of separating there a little bit, make it a little bit bigger. So this I find is typically the hardest portion of tying in a bag, is just getting the chanter stock into the neck. After that, the chanter stock I think is the easiest one to tie in because you don't ever have any folds to deal with. You don't have an angle to deal with. It's really pretty easy once you get the stock into the bag. So let's see how easily that happens here. And usually if you don't try and push it straight in, if you pull on like the welt side while holding this, and then you pull on this side while holding it, you can kind of rock it into there. Sometimes I end up having to sit down and press it on my stomach to use both hands to pull on it. Once you get it past the first little bit of the neck, because that's usually the thinnest part, and it opens up down here, it gets a little bit easier to get it to go in. Now, how far you push it in is really dependent on where you want your hands at, up or down. If you're questioning whether your hands are in the right place, if you have a spare tenor stock, you can tie a tenor stock in here, which gives you a little bit more distance you can work with as far as getting just the right hand position. The chanter stock is, a solid inch shorter than tenor stock. So that's something you can play around with that doesn't require tying in a whole new bag. Let's say you feel like your hands are too close to you. Rather than buying a new bag and tying the drones back further on the bag to push your hands out, you can just put a tenor stock in there, and that extra length will let your hands drop down a little bit, so your hands will be straighter, but you can also push that out a little bit more. And that way you're not spending, I mean, these sheepskin bags aren't cheap, so you hate to, you know, not be comfortable and buy another bag and do something as far as cutting the holes to make it more comfortable, and you haven't done anything but waste several $100s. You can see this is not, it's definitely not an easy portion of tying in a bag right here. And it usually is the top part. You can see that when I push it in, it creates this seam at the base there. So that's really pretty difficult. The welt tends to stop that from happening on the bottom side. If I were to have used the wooden dowel a little bit more, it probably would have made this quite a bit easier. And I just bought I think that's just a 1-inch dowel that I got from Home Depot and cut. So it was a little bit more handy rather than, I thought it was probably 6 feet long. I said once you get it past the beginning, it's easier, but I lied about it on this one. And different stocks are obviously different diameters around, so that can determine how easy it is to push them in through the holes and flip them around. It'll determine on how easy it is to get rid of the folds or the creases. Different bags have different thicknesses to the leather. Maybe not necessarily from the manufacturer, but where they buy their leather from. And then they'll have different neck sizes. So if you had a set of Glens, which maybe have more narrow stocks, this would be a lot easier. But these are nails, I believe, which have bigger stocks. So it does make this portion and even pushing it in through here a little bit more difficult. So don't be surprised at that. And if you watch my last video, the one about my method for cutting holes in the bag, I use a 1-inch copper T, like a plumber's copper T. And I've just sharpened the one side of the T that I use to cut the holes in. So you don't want to buy the next size up. You could do the measurements on the base of your stock and you'll see that they're bigger than 1 inch. But if you buy a 1 1/4 inch copper T, you're going to make a hole that's way too big and you will have destroyed a several $100 bag. And I don't know if they make 1 1/8 inch copper tees. If they do, it might work, but I have never had a problem when I've used a 1-inch copper tee, even on bigger stocks like this. Now, it does take a little bit more effort, but it's a lot better than making one wrong cut with the tee in your bag and having the bag completely destroyed. And I'm sure the manufacturer is not giving your money back if you do something wrong to it. So this is getting pretty close now. It's probably taken 5 minutes just to do this one stock, getting it in here. But getting it in far enough is the only way that you're going to get a good tie-in on this. Even right now, the tie-in groove is way back here. And I still would like this to be just a little bit further, that's all. So this one's much different than the other ones where there's only 1/4 inch sticking up past the leather on the tie-in. The chanter one is a solid inch or more. So I'm gonna push this in just a little bit more and then show you the tie-in procedure on a chanter stock, or the way that I go about doing a chanter stock. And I guess you could grab onto this with pliers, but I feel like that might end up tearing the leather. So there, that last little bit got it in to where I'm happy. So you can kind of use the end of this if you buy the same kind of bags. You can use the end of this with where it meets up on your beading and combing to determine where you tie it in the next time if you feel like you want to adjust where your hand is at. So I'm going to see if I can't show you this from here. So you're going to do the exact same thing where you go up through this, pull it taut as if I'd already was at the end of the, I pulled it tight. So you're going to do this, grab onto it again, and just create this loop. You're going to send it down onto here, and I'll see if I can't, well, I'll do it not for real right now. So you're going to get this so it's in the tie-in groove, and you're going to take your packing materials and you're going to stick them into or underneath and along the welt. And you're going to put that right to where it meets up with the end of the welt. I don't know if you can see that. So not sticking up and not way below it, just nice and flush with the top of the welt. So, and then from there, if this was tight, it would be pulling on it right now. And then I'll grab the other packing material and slide it in on the other side. And then just make sure they're nice and even. This packing material helps to take up the gap that this welt creates. You can imagine if that packing material wasn't there, I'll just take this one out, it creates this gap right there that it wouldn't be making contact with the leather. So, and this just acts like a wedge to offset this gap between right here and right there. And I've used the same packing material on new bags many times without it having a problem. So I'll see if I can't find a way to show you this. This thing's probably going to drop whenever I do this. I know what you guys are thinking, that Steven Spielberg is going to show up any minute now and offer me a job. I've got some pretty good angles. So let's see. I can't walk this along here. So it's the same tie-in procedure. A good pull on it to get it to go down into the tie-in groove. And I'll see if I can't move the camera as I go along. So I've gone around one time, a good pull, 2 times, a good pull, and that's 3 times now that I've gone around, giving it pulls every say half a turn. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring the tie-in cord. I'm going to try and keep this tight and show you. Once I go past the welt here, I'm going to bring the tie-in cord up to the front of this, right where it just skims the edge of this packing material and the welt. So I'll just, once I go past this welt on this 3rd turn, I slowly start to angle it out and try and get it to where it hits right where I want it to be, right at the middle. So I'm out and it's about in the middle of the bag. I don't know if you can see that, but it's about in the middle of the bag, and it is going to line up with my tie-in, my packing material and the end of the welt of the bag. And I'll go around 2 times like this. So let me see if I can't just angle this a little bit. Come into the picture. So again, doing half a turn and then a pull, half a turn and then a pull. So that's 1 time around, 1.5. And now I've gone around 2 times. Now once I go past this welt again, actually when I get to about halfway around again, is when I will start to angle back to the actual tie-in groove. So I started the first one whenever I crossed up to the front, right when I passed the welt. Now I'm going to get the string to the halfway point and then cross back down to the tie-in groove. So I'll go half a turn, give it a pull, and then start my angle over back into the tie-in groove and give it a pull. And now, if you can see that the crisscross that's made is made right pretty much in the middle there. So ensuring that there's good contact in several different places. So now I'm going to put this back up here. Hopefully I can get this set again without dropping everything. I think it's going to drop. There we go. So, no, it's going to fall. Hold on, guys, I'm trying to do this. See, that's what happens. I need help. All right. So from here, I've gone around 3 times in the tie-in groove, crossed, gone 2 times up here, then crossed back. Now it's the same as the other ones. You go around 3 times, put the pull through in, then go around 2 more times and pull it through. So I'm just doing good pulls every half a turn or so. 1, 2, 2.5, 3. Now on the chanter one, I make sure that I put the pull through on the top portion where it's as tight as possible, not down here where it might be loose from any gaps there are from the leather. So I put that on the top of the opposite side of the welt on that stock. And I'll go around a couple more times. It's the exact same, like I said, once you've done the cross or crisscross from the front of the stock to the back, and then same thing, just put the pull through in, pull the excess that you cut off on there, and cinch it down. Pull it through. If it's easy to pull through, it's probably not a very good tie-in job, so you would want to redo it before you put seasoning in it. It's much easier to tie it in before you put seasoning into it and get seasoning on the stalks. They tend to slip around whenever they get covered in seasoning. And then you'll notice that on the back of your sheepskin bags, there's a little loop here. That's to hang this thing up to drip out once you do the seasoning. But I don't have anywhere to hang this that's that small. So I take the pull through and I use this in there. So I'll leave a big enough loop that I can just put it over my shower head and let it drain into the shower and then just wash it away with warm water. So just a big enough loop to go around a shower head. Tie it in a knot, cut off the excess, and then your bag is tied in and ready for seasoning. And that pretty much is it. If anybody has any questions, you can leave it in the comments section.